Welcome to another Truximo video, and this is sort of a review of two different products. Firstly, the Toaks 550ml titanium camping pot, and secondly, the MSR Pocket Rocket 2 camping stove. And I'm going to be also talking a little bit about the Jetboil Zip, which I already own, as by way of a comparison, and talking about why I bought these two products, what they're for. So the Toaks 550ml titanium camping pot, that is really what it says. It's a camping pot, it's got handles, it's got a little lid, it's made of titanium, so it really is light, and we'll come on to that. It's got little marks on the inside showing the volume. You can see the marks go up to 500ml, and it is actually a 550ml capacity, so there's a bit of extra room in there. The MSR Pocket Rocket 2, it's a super lightweight, compact, folding stove that can screw onto the top of a standard fuel canister. It unfolds with three little arms so that you can rest all kinds of pots and pans on top of it. You could use it for real cooking with a frying pan or a pot that you're cooking things directly into, but for my purposes I'm just using it for ultralight camping, and I just want something that can boil water really quickly. One thing that is quite nice about it is that it's got one of those big chunky wire controllers to turn the gas on and off, so it's going to be nice and easy to use even if water is boiling over. And as I say, I'm going to be using the Jetboil just as a bit of a point of comparison, because the Jetboil is what I've always used for camping in the past. It is brilliant, it's very compact, it boils water really quickly, but it's just not as light as some of the other things on the market, and that's really why I went for the Toaks and the MSR Pocket Rocket 2, because they are just about as light as anything that you can buy as a quick way to boil water when you're out and about. So looking at their weights, the Toaks pot on its own is just 70 grams, which is extremely light. You add in the little mesh bag that protects it, that goes up to 83 grams, which is still really light. The stove on its own, 74 grams, so pretty similar weight, and if you put in its red plastic protective pot, it's 104 grams. And although these products are not sold as a kit, unlike the Jetboil, which comes as a package, that I just bought them because both of them are essentially the lightest option available in the category of what I wanted. They do actually work really nicely together, because when the Pocket Rocket is folded down, and even if you put it in its red plastic container, which you wouldn't necessarily need while you're on a camping trip, it does fit really nicely into the pot, which makes for quite a compact little camping stove kit. So you can put it away, put the pot back in its orange mesh protective bag, and you've got something there that's really compact. Obviously you will need fuel separately to that. One of the benefits of the Jetboil is that if you take a small fuel canister, it can be contained within there. And that whole kit altogether is just 186 grams, which compares pretty nicely to the Jetboil, which is just the kit without the fuel. I'm doing everything without fuel as a kind of fair comparison. That weighs in at 345 grams, so quite a bit more. Although, of course, the Jetboil does have a higher capacity, and it does have some additional features like the protective neoprene sleeve, so I'm not saying it's a completely like-for-like comparison. The MSR Pocket Rocket 2 just screws on top of a standard camping canister. I'm using quite a large one here. Obviously, if you use a smaller one, it's going to keep it more compact and light, but again, fuel is really a separate consideration, but it sets up nicely and it's nice and stable. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a test here. What I wanted to do was test how quickly each of them can boil 500ml of water. So I've put 500ml of water in each of them, set them going, and I'm going to set the timer, and obviously I will speed it up. In fairness, what I discovered quite soon after I started is that this really isn't a fair test. I was using two different sizes and types of canister, and it was pretty apparent that the Jetboil was struggling to boil the water using the canister that I'd set it up with, and I don't think that is down to the Jetboil. Rig them up with the exact same canister and re-recorded, and that's why we've got the side-by-side view. And apologies, you can't really see the Jetboil boiling, but it was boiling nicely at around 250. The MSR was boiling the water well at 220, and I think it was properly a rolling boil at about 250, which is when I stopped it. So there's about a 30-second difference depending on exactly when you say it's boiling. I didn't put thermometers in, but not too far off, and certainly far better than using the small Jetboil canister. I don't know if that's down to the contents, or if it's an old canister, or if it wasn't properly full. I've not kind of investigated that, so I wouldn't necessarily read anything into that, but certainly it took a lot longer. And while we watch me trying to boil the Jetboil with the smaller canister, which goes on until nearly 5 minutes, I'll just wrap up with some final thoughts. So as a kit for ultralight camping, the combination of the MSR Pocket Rocket and the Toaks 550ml titanium pot is brilliant. You have a kit that does the exact same job as a jet boil. It's half the weight. It's really compact, especially if you take a small canister. It boils water really quickly, which is all you need for ultralight camping. You just need to be able to make hot drinks and rehydrate food, and you're away. And if you did want to take a larger pot or a pan and actually cook directly into it, you've got that option as well, which is something that's quite hard to do on the jet boil. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility. It probably doesn't quite have the wind protection of the jet boil, but it does have a baffle along the top, that kind of cross-shaped piece of metal, which helps to protect it from the wind. I don't think that you'd have any issues unless you were cooking in an absolute howling gale. So while I've always recommended the jet boil, and I continue to think that it's an absolutely brilliant piece of kit and something that I'd recommend to anyone looking to buy a first camping stove for hiking, and something that's compact and lightweight and really easy to use, there are advantages, particularly if you want to really trim grams, to picking up something like the MSR Pocket Rocket and an ultralight pot, and you can get ones that are a little bit larger than the 550ml capacity one, and possibly ones that are even a little bit smaller, although really this is about as small as you can reasonably get, and probably as small as you would want to go. I hope you found this little mini 2-product review interesting. If you have, I'd love it if you'd give it a like, and of course subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be talking more about some of the bits of kit I've bought to trim down the weight of my pack when I go hiking, and I'm going to be doing more reviews and discussions of those over coming weeks. And I've also got a video coming up of a hike that I'm planning in Scotland in the Cairngorms at the end of the month, which I hope will be interesting, and hopefully some nice footage out of that. So do subscribe, and that way you'll continue to see those when they come up in the future.